Few days ago, I made a video about the lore behind the Stygian Onslaught along with the lore behind the weapon appearances. I personally find it to be one of my favorite videos in this time around, and I highly recommend you to watch it. In today's video, however, I want to talk about the gameplay behind this mode, the ups and downs, the problems surrounding it, and finally, my overall opinion behind this mode. Let me put a general disclaimer here. These are my opinions. My channel analytics claim most of you are adults, and you are entitled to have your own opinions just as I am allowed to have mine. Just don't be offended, and most importantly, just don't be a about it. Anyways, don't forget to give this video a like and comment so the channel can be noticed by the algorithm. My name is Glitchxcity, and I make lore and commentary videos on the channel to keep you company. So the premise behind this game mode is that we have to fight a leyline anomaly in Sol Terrae in order to prevent monsters coming out of it. In order for us to do this, we have to enter the anomaly and fight the monsters within it. The deeper you enter, the harder the monsters get and the more unique their traits become. Of course, you gain rewards from the leeway chasing depending on how deep you entered, hence the rewards you gain when you clear a stage. However, in dire difficulty, you'll find radiant phantasms that can take shape into weapon appearances that you can use on other characters. But since you discover this rather than being rewarded, the weapon will eventually disintegrate because it was stripped away from the ley lines until it can no longer take shape, hence the time limit that the weapon skin has. Are you impressed? Yep, even rewards have lore. That's the basic premise of this event. Now let's continue to the game mode itself. This game mode consists of 5 main difficulties, from normal, advancing, hard, menacing, and fearless. The main rewards are of course the juicy 450 primogems, barely triples but whatever, and you can obtain this easily from the first 3 difficulties. You can even co-op to make your gameplay experience more fun and easier. If you want to reach higher, you can give yourself a try in menacing and fearless difficulty, where the main reward is the dust of enlightenment and you can use them to reroll artifact substats. Each difficulty will grant you 1 dust of enlightenment, so you can obtain at least 2 of these. For fearless difficulty, however, you have to do it on your own to get the rewards. The rest of it are just your typical Mora and Heroes with. The main difference compared to other endgame modes, however, is that you can use this mode to farm for artifacts, and is actually a lot more resin efficient than normal artifact farming in domains. Every 120 points of dire prestige, you'll obtain 1 extra artifact without any limit, and if you accumulate 1200 dire prestige, you'll obtain 1 dust of enlightenment, but you can only obtain this once. This, however, only lasts for 10 days after the game mode cycle reset, so if you really want to get those artifacts and that extra dust, then be sure to use it before it's gone. By the time I'm writing the script, it has already ended and you can't gain artifacts from this game mode anymore until the next cycle. However, there's one more hidden difficulty called Dire. This is definitely the most difficult difficulty so far, with HP that is way above those in Spiral Abyss and the Imaginary Theater. This is where you get the weapon appearance as your reward, but there's another catch. If you can defeat the final boss in less than 180 seconds, or in other words 3 minutes, you'll get the sublimed version of this weapon appearance. Basically, it makes the weapon glow and you'll get more lore from it. Because the bosses are so thick in HP, it's impossible to clear it with free-to-play teams or normal investment, so you have to bring your perfect build to this game mode, characters with constellations, and even their signature weapons. The most bare minimum are 4 stars with their Constellation 6 and 5 stars with their signature weapon, but usually you are demanded to have constellations in your 5-star characters anyway for the most comfortable experience possible. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult to do so. Same like Fearless, you have to do this on your own to gain the rewards. The gameplay is like what you expect. Clear the stage as fast as possible. Starting at menacing difficulty, you can't use the same character to clear the next boss, so you have to have at least 12 different characters built. Some enemies gain certain advantage and disadvantages to certain elements, so it's best to bring elements that counter them. For example, for the Talpa, you are demanded to bring Pyro and Cryo but not Hydro because the enemy is immune to Hydro damage. However, you can still use Dendro characters to counter the boss. Second boss demands you to bring Pyro and Dendro to take advantage of burning damage, but not Cryo or Hydra because they'll reset its meter. In all difficulties, you only have 100 seconds for each boss, so you have to defeat them ASAP. That's the general gist of Stygian Onslaught. I believe it's very straightforward, and there really isn't much to say other than it's a boss rush endgame. I believe some of you watched some videos that say this game mode is terrible and all, and you probably clicked on this video expecting something like that. I personally haven't watched these type of videos myself except for an online's video, but here's my personal like and dislike about this game mode. Let's start with something I like. First of all, it's a challenging mode. I like this mode because it demands you to bring your A game and your best possible character build. Sure, the boss makes you restrict who you can use, but at the same time, you are required to bring a lot of characters anyway, so this is bound to happen. Secondly, you have reason to replay this game mode. Unlike Spiral Abyss and the Imaginary Theater where it's just a one-time gameplay and dip, you have more reason to replay Stygian Onslaught because of the artifact farming. While it's only for 10 days, it's more than enough reason to make you come back to this game mode and farm for these artifacts. Third, the main rewards are locked behind the easiest difficulty. As you can already guess by now, the main rewards of this game mode is of course the Primogems. Don't get me wrong, the Dust of Enlightenment is also the main reward and is a valuable reward in fact, but you still have to farm for artifacts anyway, and this reroll item still based on how lucky you are in rerolling the substats of your artifacts. You can live without them, but you can't live without the Primogems because you need them to pull for characters that are stronger in the future. And finally, available for co-op. If you want more spice to your game, you can use this co-op feature to defeat the enemies together. It's also a good feature that guarantees you to at least obtain one Dust of Enlightenment. The co-op feature is also optional, so you can choose to do this game mode by yourself or bring friends to defeat the mode together. Now, the ugly part. First of all, there's barely any difference from Spiral Abyss. I'll be real with you all, this game mode feels like the harder version of Spiral Abyss despite the amount of additional gimmicks the bosses have. But the thing is, there's not much difference with their normal form either. Secondly, you start with zero energy. I think we all can agree that this reason alone is the biggest hindrance that makes this game mode stressful. A lot of characters need their energy to bring out their best potential, and spending few seconds to fill that energy can waste a lot of time. And finally, the skin is locked behind a paywall. Now don't get me wrong, you can clear it with non-will investment, but you have to be realistic on how stressful that can get. I always believe that challenging doesn't equate to stress, and this is definitely one of them. There are plenty of clears that can do just that, but the question is, how long does that take and can you do that as well? Although to be fair, this is a very petty cons, and we'll talk about this in deeper detail in a second. That's pretty much it. If you ask me, I don't have a lot of complaints when it comes to Stygian Onslaught, and I think it's a solid game mode. But at the same time, the main complaint I have is also the biggest issue I have, and that is how this game mode barely has any difference with Spiral Abyss. These days, Spiral Abyss always have at least 3 bosses in each chamber. Heck, there are even days where both halves have bosses. That's how I feel with Stygian Onslaught, especially the time limit is also similar with the ideal time limit in Spiral Abyss. Few months ago, I made a video talking about one of Genshin's best combat events, and until today, I still deem it as one because of how fun and challenging it was. Basically, it was a punching bag event, and I really liked it because it uses the multiple HP bar mechanic, and the score is based on how much HP bar you deplete. Sure, it also started with 0 energy and there's a time limit, but the platinum target is very achievable with casual builds, the team is not too restricting, and it adds new gameplay. I still remember I was able to clear the game with various team comps, and I genuinely had a lot of fun doing that. It's definitely not easy, but it's still challenging and fun enough. I was expecting something similar with this game mode, but I know deep down that it probably won't be that way, and we have the Stygian Onslaught that we have today. While I don't have very negative experience with this game mode, heck, I would even say it's actually not that bad, I still feel let down because the experience is not so different from Spiral Abyss, and it's just the harder version of it without buffs in every chamber or every cycle. If they want to make it boss rush game mode, then they could at least make the enemies have mechanics like in Hypostasis Sonata, where the enemies have different attack patterns. There are times in that event where the bosses have extremely annoying mechanics like these shooting geo missiles. These attacks are annoying as heck, but can also be used to your advantage to destroy the hypostasis pillars. That's how I want it to be, where the bosses have mechanics that are different from the overworld ones. The lore even say the enemies have different traits the deeper they enter the anomaly, but in reality, It's just the thicker version of the same mechanic, like the Talpas have thicker HP shields, the dragon statue needs more pyro attacks, and the secret source automaton needs more cryo application. I have to say, however, only the Talpa that has more attack pattern, so I have to give them on that, but I wish that could be the same with the dragon statue and the automaton as well. You can argue that the co-op adds more spice to this game mode, but if the bosses' patterns are almost the same as the overworld ones, then there's really not much difference either, don't you think? As for the skin, honestly, I don't really care. I think the skin is the main controversy behind this game mode, which in my opinion, I just don't give a fuck. There's a reason why I chose to become a lore and commentary channel, because I just don't like spending money. If I need information about the lore behind these items, I can just go to Genshin Wiki and read Gucci. That's why I was able to make a video about it a few days ago, and I already knew the lore prior to me borrowing my friend's account to record the weapon skins, because I need to do a lot of research for that video. The game mode doesn't really feel like FOMO anyway, because they hide the new difficulty until you defeat the hardest difficulty, and not only that, the weapon will disappear after some time, which we can all agree that it's definitely not worth the time. It's giving that 30-day app trial, but instead of a trial, it's the actual product. Unlike the Realm of Tempered Valor, where it's clearly a Mavuika shilling event, this game mode is anything but that. And you are not demanded to have a specific team comp to get the skin, but you are demanded to have high constellation characters, because even if you do have the preferable team, you are not guaranteed to get the skin either because of the investment. You were, however, demanded to have high constellation characters, and since it's clearly for players that spend considerable amounts of money, I don't see that as a problem either. You don't need the skin anyway, and you can live without it. It's not even that good either. If you want an actually good weapon for your characters, I personally would spend on their signature weapons, because not only they look good on them, but also contribute to their kit as well. Except for Nilou and Zhongli, I can't really help you with that. However, this is just my personal opinion regarding this, and while I personally still stand that it's not worth getting the skin, heck, I don't even care about it either because I stopped at menacing difficulty, there are some people that say the point is the dire difficulty is clearable with low investment. Yes, but again, at what cost? Is it worth getting sweaty and repeating over and over again for a skin? Even if you are able to clear it on the first try with that kind of investment, which I doubt 90% of people are able to do, can you do that again? I'll say this before and I'll say it again, you have to be realistic on your expectations and what tools you have. There are many factors on how people on the internet can clear it, and the biggest factor is again, investment. It includes perfect artifacts, perfect rotations, crit RNG, triple crown, and you have to consider all of this. Don't get me wrong though, these clears are really cool and quite satisfying to look at. But if you try to put anyone can clear it just see this video type of argument, then you are putting your expectations way beyond the heavens at this point. Finally, let's all admit, this game mode is far from perfect. And it's also the same case with Imaginary Theater because there were a lot of issues when that mode was introduced. However, the developers take their time and continue to improve the mode, hence the Imaginary Theater that we see today, which in my very subjective opinion is the perfect game mode that they ever released so far. It's a really fun mode, it encourages you to build more characters, the buffs are really fun, it's quite challenging, the enemies have just the right amount of HP, and the lore behind it is great. Of course, it's not for everyone, but for me as someone who builds all of my characters, I'd say Imaginary Theater is a great game mode. As for Stygian Onslaught, one thing that I want them to make this mode better is to make it have its own identity. I think the way they make this game mode to be resin efficient to farm artifacts for the first 10 days is a good thing, because it gives you a reason why you should play the game mode. But at the same time, you have to remember that this game mode is still an end game. The closest that I can think of that is similar to this game mode is Honkai Star Rail's Apocalyptic Shadow, where that mode is essentially a boss rush mode as well, where you have to defeat two insanely super buffed bosses with different type of mechanics than the ones you typically face. I have to say, however, I like the addition of co-op for Stygian Onslaught because all this time, players were demanding for the developers to add co-op in Spiral Abyss and they answer it with this. Definitely a decent solution I'd say, and this feature is optional whether you want to do this yourself or not. But again, the core problem remains the same, and that is how the game mode barely has any unique differences. Personally, it would be great if they add more flavor, and I don't necessarily demand them to make this game mode easy either, because let's be real, this game mode's premise is never to be an easy game mode to begin with, but at least make it different when it comes to the enemy's attack pattern. Making it easy will make this game mode lose its meaning as an endgame, but making it just another HP inflation game mode is going to make this game mode not that different from Spiral Abyss either. Overall, this game mode will definitely receive updates and feedback just like the Imaginative Theater. It is still in early infancy after all, and I am sure they are working on how to make this game mode better. It's definitely not a bad one, but it definitely could have been better. What are your thoughts on Stygian Onslaught? Let me know in the comments. Tjena!